Happy Wednesday, everyone. Some people like to call Wednesday hump day. Depending on your mood, you might want to call it slump day. But I think for us today, it's a get up and jump day. There's a lot to be excited about, right? We have a bunch of toys upstairs, advanced preview before the general public, and we all work in the auto sector in a certain capacity. So it's like a kid in a candy store. Really looking forward to checking out some of the new features and capabilities and some of the concept vehicles that are upstairs after this event. On top of that, there's a lot to learn. I think today we're going to glean some insights from each other, hopefully learn something new. I think that should be the goal for every day in our lives, to learn something new. And I would also say that we are all gainfully employed. That's something to be thankful for. There's been quite a lot of disruption in the digital industry in Q1 of this year. It is, let me just see if I can work this. There we go. We have seen 100,000 layoffs in big tech. This includes companies like Facebook, Meta, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. Top talent that have been at these companies for years and have been let go due to a variety of reasons, right? There's inflation, there's share prices that are declining, and there's also very, very much a big bet around OpenAI and ChatGPT. That's been the biggest sort of single hot topic in Q1. I feel like ChatGPT, and to be quite honest, I did not use ChatGPT to prepare for this presentation, but I did ask ChatGPT to give me a joke about the automotive industry in the US today. The output of that joke was a little nonsensical. It wasn't funny, in my opinion, and it was a little insulting to some of the domestic OEMs here. So I'm not going to share it with you guys, but I just want to highlight the fact that ChatGPT and OpenAI is not quite there yet. That said, if you guys are very curious about what that joke is, come talk to me afterwards, and I will tell you what it is. We've got quite a lot going on in the industry, and it's meant to disrupt the entire ecosystem. But our viewpoint is that it's more distraction in the short term than it is actual disruption in the long term. There's still a lot of question marks in terms of how AI is going to impact the industry as a whole, and there is a lot of uncertainty around how things are going to pan out. Google and Bing obviously are spending quite a lot of money and resources and reducing headcount to win that race to fine-tune the technology. Billions of dollars are being spent, resources, bandwidth, and they're trading blows. It's almost AI for an eye, right? And like the old adage goes, an eye for an eye kind of leaves the whole world blind. So let's make sure that we factor in the noise to signal ratio, because there is still a lot that needs to happen before ChatGPT or OpenAI is where it needs to be. To guide digital marketing efforts and to provide insights into the whole marketing strategy within the auto sector as a whole. We know that recently ChatGPT was used in Colombia by a judge to determine the outcome of a trial. That's the first time this has ever happened where AI actually resulted in the result of a very significant trial in Colombia. Doctors and physicians are using it to diagnose patients, and there has been some issues where misdiagnosis has been happening with ChatGPT. So I'm not trying to discount the value that AI is going to bring in the future. It's definitely going to disrupt the industry, but it's still quite a long time away from where we are today. So just want to make sure that we're not getting distracted by all of this chatter and focusing on what we do know. It's like we're driving at night, right? You have your headlights on, you can only see as far as your headlights will show you, but you still make the journey home safely. So let's focus on what we do know and try not to put too much emphasis or FOMO in missing out on what could potentially happen with AI and the industry as a whole. With that, there's also a lot of impact that's happening from the government. We're seeing DOJ talk about the potential breakup of Alphabet and Google into separate business units. Just recently, we saw TikTok having to talk to Congress and be interrogated by them, and it could be the case that TikTok will eventually be a thick lockdown in the US. We don't know what's going to happen there, too. So it's important to stay the course. Let's make sure that we are not putting our marketing dollars and investment into things that are still uncertain, but to use what we do know and guide that and stay on the path. So with that, I do want to talk about a bold prediction here. Kind of ties into the conversation. Everybody here, I'm sure, knows Neil deGrasse Tyson. In December of 2023 or 2022, he did make a very bold prediction, saying that by 2050 of this year, similar to how automobiles replaced horses as the primary mode of transportation in the early 20th century, that by 2050, all vehicles on the road will be electric and autonomous driving vehicles. So I want to take a moment here and with all of you auto industry experts, just take a quick poll. How many folks, by raise of hands, say that his prediction will come to fruition by 2050? That's one. One. Okay, cool. The rest of you, I subscribe to that same mentality. I felt it was a little too aggressive, but when we look at the data and see where things are trending, it may not be too far-fetched. So companies like Google and the Waymo division there have spent the last decade fine-tuning the automatic autonomous driving vehicles. They have run these through DMAs that are large, like San Francisco and Phoenix. They're just starting to open up in Los Angeles as well. And once you prove the concept in these major DMAs, first through impacting the rideshare industry and then also commercial trucking and commercial product transport, it's going to act as a force multiplier, and then eventually we'll get there. Today, of the 287 million vehicles that are registered in the US, only 1,400 are autonomously driving vehicles. That's 0.1% of the overall vehicles in the US. So it seems like it's still a long ways away, but when we look at some of the recent data from consumers and their preferences, we will see, according to Deloitte, that the US still very much has a preference towards the standard diesel or gasoline-powered engines. Compare that with the rest of the world and the countries here, and eventually we're going to get to that tipping point where electric vehicles and, over time, autonomous driving vehicles will take over. It's 27 years from now, right? And if we look back 27 years from today, we were in the advent of the internet, pretty much, right? This was before the big bubble burst in 1998, and look at the strides that we've made over that last 27 years. So it's not too far-fetched. I would also say that bold predictions like this, especially with Neil deGrasse Tyson, there's no marketing dollars or investment or financial sort of backing to make this type of a prediction, right? And I think it's a win-win at the end of the day. Either it does come to fruition and he looks like a visionary after the fact, or it doesn't, and there's always going to be some type of post-mortem and outlier and reason for why it didn't happen, and that could be chalked up as sort of validation for that prediction after the fact. Thirdly, he may not be alive by 2050, so if he does go before then, that probably goes with that sort of confidence that maybe the prediction will go right. In any case, we want to make sure that we don't put too much into the very far future and make sure that we are guiding ourselves and our journeys through the digital marketing auto landscape based off what we know and only look to what we can see, like driving at night with headlights. Deloitte also mentioned in a 2023 study that these are the top influencers for deciding what vehicle to purchase from new consumers. And no surprise, the top 3 or 4 are quality, performance, features. Price is number 5, right? So that's a big factor. But if you look at the bottom 2 here in this survey, consumers are saying that brand advertising and sponsorships from manufacturers don't impact as much of the buying decision as some of these upper funnel or top influencers. Despite that, and only 11% say that brand advertising will influence that decision, there's an increase of about 11% year over year in total digital advertising across the autos industry. There's still supply chain issues that are impacting the category as a whole, and there are incentives that are going down on the hood that are resulting in vehicle purchases happening. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between where dollars should go. Should it go towards incentives or should it go towards marketing? And based off this survey, which to be granted is a little misleading because consciously a lot of people may have reservations by saying that brand advertising influenced their decision, but subconsciously it probably does. And it also feeds the top of the funnel and builds brand awareness and affinity and gets people into that consideration set during that consumer path to purchase journey. I do want to make a distinction between brand advertising and performance advertising across the digital landscape. Performance advertising, I think, plays quite a lot of value, because when they're in that consideration set and they're doing research around which OEM or nameplate to purchase, having that presence within lower funnel channels like search, native, and contextual definitely can play a big part in terms of what the ultimate decision will be for that particular consumer. Let's dive a little deeper into some of these auto insights. So we do know that despite current supply chain issues, investment in the digital advertising space is going to increase 11% year over year. We also know that there is, according to Cox, quite a shift in terms of the ability to purchase. The average APR continues to rise for financing for both new and used and wholesale vehicles, as we can see in the top chart here. And also the cost of used and wholesale cars continues to rise based off of last year's index. The additional piece is around the rise in cost of media. So if we look at search and Google primarily, over the last 3 years, the average CPC within the autos industry 3 years ago was about $2.04. Last year, it went up to $2.77, and the projection based off of Google benchmarks for this year is $3.11. So it's a pretty significant uptick in cost of media. Again, a lot of this is tied to layoffs and investments in different areas, but there are alternatives and ways to capitalize on media at a much more cost-efficient way. That's kind of where we play in. At AdMedia, we don't have as much saturation within the marketplace as a Google or a Bing, and our cost per click in Q1 within the auto landscape came in at 81 cents. So that's essentially a quarter of the CPC or costs as some of the major engines are producing today. So a lot of value there. We're also seeing quite a lot of impact within conquesting across the engines. That's where we tend to shine when it comes to search, native, and contextual. We outperform the major engines by quite a significant clip in terms of cost of pricing and back-end KPIs. And then finally, there is a huge recall coming up. 2022, we know, was a significant year for recalls. There was over 400 million individual recalls across OEMs, impacting about 27 million vehicles across the US. The biggest recall that's coming up, and we've talked about this for the last 2-3 years, and it's still on the horizon, is phasing out third-party cookies. So with Chrome specifically, they are planning to phase this out in 2023, and it's going to put such a premium on first-party data. So OEMs, dealerships, regional groups, and local dealers, that first-party data is going to be critical. Also partnering with third-party companies that have non-third-party cookies, and with us, we have our own DMP that reaches 200 million people based off of first-party data that we have across our owned and operated network. We are able to leverage that for audience targeting even after third-party cookies go away, and this big recall does occur. So again, it's important to stay the course. Let's not look backwards. Let's move forward. And if we try to go back and keep the same strategy with evolving sort of items in the industry, it may result in severe tire damage. We've all seen that. That's happened to me before. I did back up even after seeing that sign, and I had to call AAA. It was a big mess. So we don't want to do that metaphorically with our digital marketing campaigns. So a little bit about AdMedia. We are an ad tech and a media company. We do have thousands of owned and operated sites, many of which are category endemic to the auto industry. Like I mentioned earlier, our cost in media is quite more effective than buying on Google and Bing. There's incremental reach, and we have our own targeted platform and DMP targeting capabilities from our owned and operated data. So we do work with quite a lot of publishers and own sites within the industry, as noted here. And we do work with a lot of advertisers on the tier 1, tier 2 OEM side, as well as research and review portals. So Toyota, Mercedes, Nissan, Motor Trend, AutoWeb, all long-term great partners of ours. With regard to third-party cookies going away, we spent a lot of R&D to fine-tune our contextual offering. So we have the ability to crawl hundreds of thousands of pages daily and use semantic mapping and language technology to make sure that the ad distribution is relevant to the content across a publisher page. Here's an example here where you can see a AutoWeb ad on a page utilizing a lot of the R&D that we have put into place. Just to give you guys a little more detail in terms of the effectiveness of our network, we have worked with a major OEM, Japanese OEM, and we had criteria of improving performance across their segment and conquesting campaigns. Very remarkable results. The cost of media was a lot more efficient than it was on the engines, and you can see how we outperformed the engines across both segment and conquest as a whole. So a lot of value there, and looking forward to expanding our efforts within the auto industry and with all of you, hopefully. So, in closing, I think the old adage holds true. The path to success, or the road to success, is always under construction. But sometimes, the path that we make is the best path that we make is the ones that we make ourselves. So there's a long journey ahead, and we'd love to talk to all of you and take that journey together. Let's keep the headlights on. Make sure we're not looking at things that are too far away, and be prudent and pragmatic with our marketing approach. Do have a couple colleagues here, Jeff Alderman from AdMedia, and I think Eric Vincent is out here somewhere. So talk to one of us, Again, I will tell you that joke if you guys are interested from ChatGPT. Not so funny, but it kind of highlights the fact that it still needs to be fine-tuned. In any case, looking forward to the rest of the day and for checking out a lot of the new vehicles and shiny new objects upstairs. So with that, I'll give it back to Seth. Thank you very much, and go from there.